your #1 stream show.
And those are your top TV streams of the week on iHeartRadio.
Your home for Villanova basketball is WDAS and WD273D, Fox Sports Radio, Philadelphia. The clock is ticking.
Back to throw, Jalen Hurts looks over the middle, looks right, floats one. It is caught by Swift, bounces off a tackler into the end zone for an Eagle touchdown.
The time is now to find those last-second winners. This is Countdown to Payout, powered by Mall Chevy.
Week number 7 of the football season underway here on Countdown to Payout. We are an hour away from games, and of course, we got to get through bets and more. We have maybe one of the best games on the slate in the 1 o'clocks. Baltimore Ravens, a contender in the AFC, hosting the Detroit Lions. Maybe surprise contender, but at least a surprise record so far. 5-1 Detroit is, and they are trying to stay undefeated on the road. 3-0 away from Detroit. We'll go over that game and more. We'll go over all the action here on Countdown to Payout, presented by Mall Chevrolet. John Jansen here, and also joining me in studio. Usually hear him talking Sixers basketball, but need his bets for football today. It is Sean Barnard at Sean_Barnard1. And I want to start there, Sean, with Baltimore and Detroit. I think it's one of maybe the best game, because I think the Eagles and Miami game is good because we know they're contenders. We know they're great teams. We're still trying to figure out, Baltimore's got this new offense now with Todd Monken, and we're still trying to figure out how good it is. We're still trying to figure out how much of a contender Detroit actually is. And I feel like we get some answers in this game.
Yeah, absolutely. And a beautiful day for football here. I am excited, and I'm very excited about this Ravens and Lions game specifically. I am in on the Ravens -3 for this game. Ravens coming off a 24-16 victory over the Titans in England last week, their first international victory in franchise history. And I do think this might be a moment where this Detroit Lions team, which kind of is capturing the hearts of people, I feel like this is one of the more well-liked teams across the NFL. We're going to find out what they're truly made of, that this is going to be a tough matchup for them. I want to see how Lamar's legs stretch this defense. The defensively is where we're seeing the improvements on this Lion team. Offensively, they've always been there, but last year they were putting up historically bad numbers defensively. Last in the league in yards allowed, 28th in points allowed. There's been improvements this year. They're in the top 10 in both those categories to start, but I think those numbers are going to begin to fade as we see these tougher teams. I think this Ravens team is hungry, man. There's something about this team that when I watch them that they get me juiced up. The Lamar leading the charge, the talent around him, and I do believe in this offense to continue to progress. So I think this is going to be a statement win for the Ravens. This is definitely a defining game for both teams when we kind of see how things stack up. And I totally agree. This is one of the best games on the schedule.
Yeah, I think Ravens just looking for a little bit of inconsistency. Haven't been able to string together wins until earlier this season when they won 2 straight. But since then, it's kind of back and forth for them. And I think the consistency comes when they get more comfortable in this offense. And, of course, it was injuries as well. This is a team that has suffered injuries for the last 2 years over and over again.
Yeah.
But they're healthy at wide receiver now. Lamar Jackson so far has been very healthy this season. I think Baltimore has a good chance here in this game. I actually like Baltimore a lot. The numbers right now, of course, we get all through DraftKings Sportsbook. Baltimore's a 3-point favorite against Detroit. And I like that number. I wish it was a 2.5. I was hoping to get the 2.5 because of all the Detroit love, but 3 is the number I sort of expected here. And Baltimore, I like with that number. I just think their offense at home certainly is going to test that Detroit defense. And I think you nailed it on the head. Detroit's defense is the one that's been improved.
Right.
They've been, exponentially improved from last year, which gave up a lot of points, gave up a lot of yards. This year, only giving up 307 yards per game and 64.7 yards on the ground. This is different, though. This is a running quarterback. This is a playmaking quarterback. This is the best quarterback that they have faced all season long. The other one, other than Patrick Mahomes, obviously, but beginning of the year without Travis Kelce. But the last 4 games, it's been Desmond Ridder, and that Atlanta offense we know is not good. Jordan Love, and that Green Bay offense we know isn't good. Carolina, and I think was that Andy Dalton in that game? It might have been Andy Dalton. Either way, not a good offense. Was it Bryce Young in that one? Not a good offense with Bryce Young. And Tampa Bay, they've been good, and they have good talent, but that's an offense that is going to be inconsistent because of Baker Mayfield. This is the biggest test. This is the middle of the season now. This is a big game if you want to contend, especially when they start looking at the Eagles slipping up a little bit and the 49ers slipping up a little bit. Detroit's got to keep up, and this is a game if they win, they do have a leg up in here, and especially with the Eagles taking on Miami tonight, which is a tough game for them. So I think this is a big game for Detroit. Now let's go over again to some of the props, everything. And right now the total sitting at 43.5. So a low total. Ravens defense good. Detroit's defense good. But do we see any points in this game, you think?
I think it stays under that number. That, as I mentioned, the Detroit's defense is the biggest thing that I'm looking to see tested in this. Are they legitimately that good, or has this been numbers that are inflated due to a little bit of an easy schedule? I think it's a little bit of both in this case. That I do think they're better than that they were last year for sure, but I don't think they're this top tier team that's going to carry them. They're going to be an offensive team. And to Jared Goff's credit, he has elevated this offense in a way that I honestly wasn't sure was possible. They look really good offensively, the way they're able to put up points. I love Dan Campbell as a coach. It's clear to see his influence as like an outlook and mentality on that team. I do think we see more points. I think it goes under that 43.5 number, but I don't think it's going to be a stale game. I think Lamar is going to bring some juice, bring some electricity, break things open at points in time. I do think Detroit's going to be able to respond. If I have to kind of put out a score prediction, I'd probably say in the neighborhood of like a 23-17 kind of game is kind of how I see this going. But I do like the Ravens -3, and I lean towards the under there.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking Lamar Jackson anytime touchdown. I do think he's going to have to get it done with his legs. They're not going to be able to run the ball usually by just handing it off to whether that's Justice Hill, Gus Edwards, or I'm hoping they get Keaton Mitchell involved. That's going to be an interesting one for me as a long shot play for this game if he does end up scoring Keaton Mitchell, because he's essentially the third running back, but he's the most explosive out of the three, and he's the one that's kind of this dark horse, undrafted free agent, a lot of speed with Keaton Mitchell. I think he had about a 4.3 40-yard dash. So the guy's got a lot of speed, and I expect them to use his playmaking ability, but it's also going to come in the passing game as well. Zay Flowers has been excellent. So I expect Zay Flowers and that connection with Lamar Jackson continue to be good. They're getting the ball downfield. With Zay Flowers, I lean more towards, I would say, yards props than I would touchdowns. But even if you want to go, and I got to check what the number would be, but longest caught pass for I think Zay Flowers, I think that's one that you can definitely look at because it's deep down the field. He's looking for him. Lamar Jackson, we know, likes to push the ball down the field, and I think he does end up connecting with Zay Flowers on one of those. So I'm definitely liking the passing props a lot here. I think you can pass on Detroit, especially the secondary that's not that great. Running is going to be the tough one, but I think, again, running a little bit different when Lamar's doing it. They've played at least one running quarterback in Josh Allen.
Yeah.
But other than that, or Patrick Mahomes, excuse me. But other than that, Lamar is posing different challenges for Detroit.
And a number that I really like, if you want to get on the Lamar action, is the combined pass and rush yards. For Lamar in this matchup, it's 278.5. I like that number. I also really like that number, not to tip my hat a little bit, but for the Eagles game with the Jalen Hurts, that number's at 313.
Patting yourself on the back already. It's almost like having Sean Brace in the studio here.
But I do like that kind of shout out to DraftKings for that line for combining the pass and rush yards, because when you have these dynamic quarterbacks, the dual threat action like Lamar Jackson and like Jalen Hurts, you can kind of, have it in both sides here, that both ways are a win, whether it is a pass or a rush. And that's part of what makes them special as players. And then you can obviously capitalize on the wager department. So I think if you want to get in on the Lamar Jackson action or the Jalen Hurts action, that combined pass and
Lamar
rush
Jackson
yards.
action.
I like it.
Absolutely love it. So I am seeing Zay Flowers right now, his longest reception, over 20.5. for Zay Flowers.
Doable.
They're going to connect on that. I do want to see the game log, what the longest ones are. He's got a 29-yard catch, 43-yard catch, 52-yard catch, 21-yard catch against Houston. Only had a long of 14. I think that's going to change in this game. And again, I think this is a secondary you can get over the top on, and Lamar is going to push the ball down the field against Detroit. So I absolutely love that one. That's one of my favorite. I don't do that bet often, but that is certainly one of my favorite bets of the day with Zay Flowers over 20.5. And of course, we'll ask that as well with Roy Burton, as this is Countdown to Payout presented by Mall Chevrolet for 8 years in a row. Mall Chevrolet has been South Jersey's #1 Chevy dealer. Could be because they treat their customers right. That's why Mall Chevy was voted a top 100 dealer in the country for customer satisfaction. But simply the motto is they sell Chevys for less. So come see for yourself. Visit Mall Chevrolet on Haddonfield Road in Cherry Hill, crossing the Cherry Hill Mall, or online at mallchevy.com. Find new roads at Mall Chevrolet, mallchevy.com. So we'll get with Roy Burton. I imagine this game going to have some eyes potentially there for a fantasy. But I think other games we're going to have to look at. There's not a lot of high totals on the board. You would say 43.5, Sean Bernard, low total.
Yeah.
Well, we got a 37, a 37, a 41, a 39.5, a 38.5. So not to say that there were a lot of unders last week, a lot of very low scoring games. I'm sure it can change in this week while the numbers are all down. I don't know if this is a week you look at the overs, but I'm interested to see where the offense is. Are you seeing a game potentially in the 1 o'clocks there where you can find some offense? Because, look, I think it's going to be tough, but I think the Bears-Raiders is certainly one I think can go over that, and that one can be a little bit high scoring. Of course, has to do with health and quarterback health, but I think that game, 2 bad defenses, 2 bad teams, can certainly get out of hand.
Yeah, and the unders have dominated to start the NFL season, so I think we're kind of seeing the lines adjust to this. That it's
big time.
Yeah, big time adjust that all these numbers are dropping. If I'm looking at one game for offense in that 1 o'clock slate, I almost lean toward the Bills and Patriots being able to get over that 41 number. This is much more from the Bills' perspective than it is the Patriots. It is a struggle for them to score points. But I think from the Bills that this is a matchup where they're going to kind of pour it on, that I feel this is kind of a statement win for Buffalo. We know that it is a divisional rival. They're starting to click and kind of play better football than we saw from them to start the year. I could see this being a take the top off, put up 35 plus themselves, and then the Patriots kind of put in a 6 or whatever else needs to get over that total. So that's one I look at. I could potentially see. I wanted to go in on the Raiders and Bears. I like the Bears straight up this week. That I think with Brian Hoyer under center for the Raiders.
I cannot believe they're starting Brian Hoyer.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Still around. He's still doing his thing. He's still doing his Brian Hoyer thing. But when you look across this board, there's not a lot of room for optimism for points. The over-unders outside of the late games, not really a lot that I like in that direction.
No, not at all. And I don't think you have to be scared about New England at all at home here against the Bills, not in terms of the spread, but just looking at trying to find, touchdown scores, fantasy production, some big numbers. I think the Bills are going to put up big numbers against New England. New England's giving up 321 yards of total offense, or their defense, 321 yards total. Buffalo, 349 yards as well. So Mac Jones might be able to move the ball. I just don't trust that offense at all. This is going to be, look, I think it's going to be all Buffalo. I'm not betting the game in terms of a side, but that's when I would also look for if we're going to do any fantasy or we're looking at some touchdown scores as well. All right, so let's go through these games one by one. We'll start as we get Roy Burton at 12:20. But we'll start. We did with that Lions-Ravens game, but an NFC South matchup that's also pretty big. We have no idea who's going to win the NFC South. It is a mess. It's still a mess. I don't know when it's not going to be a mess, but the winner of this game takes sole possession of first place in the NFC South. So, Sean Bernard, is there a side you like in this game? What do you think about Tampa Bay and Atlanta?
Yeah, and just to lay out the standings, as of now, the Buccaneers lead the division with a 3-2 record. Falcons right behind them at 3-3. Saints one behind them at 3-4, and then the Panthers down at 0-6 in fourth place. So a very tight race that we have. That not really sure what team's going to come out of this. As far as this game specifically with the Falcons and Buccaneers, I lean towards the Buccaneers. This is one that I will be staying away from a gambling perspective. That this is a game full of uncertainty for me. I want to be in on this Falcons team. I just can't with Desmond Ridder. That there's just not quite enough juice there. I almost want to see what it would look like with Taylor Heineke behind there as their backup quarterback.
Yeah.
That Heineke's a guy that I at least feel like has that ability to win games. They got to
start thinking about that soon.
Yeah. And Ridder, I understand he's your guy that you drafted him, but Heineke I can at least respect from a guy that puts you in a position to win games. I have not quite seen that from Desmond Ridder. I believe he's got better physical tools, that he has that kind of pop. And they also need to give Bijan Robinson the ball more. I have not seen enough of Robinson. That's something I want to get into with Roy Burton when we have this fantasy discussion, how those carries are being split there. But I don't know. There's not enough confidence in this Falcons team. So I lean towards the Buccaneers, but one I'm staying away from.
Yeah, I actually do like Tampa Bay a lot in this game, and it's one of my bets. The Atlanta offense is just not good enough. And if turnovers are going to continue to happen, which Desmond Ridder has been turning the ball over in bunches, and it's been hurting them because it's happening in the red zone. It's happening late in games. If this game is close, I just have a feeling, and from what we've seen, that Desmond Ridder is going to just throw the game away. Baker Mayfield, look, nothing spectacular. Buccaneers aren't even averaging over 300 yards on offense per game. So it's not like they're doing anything crazy, but Baker Mayfield, only 3 interceptions. He has 7 touchdowns. He's been taking care of the ball. They score when they get in the red zone. And that's all I need to know. If the Falcons team is going to continue to turn the ball over the way that they have, then Tampa Bay here, I think, has the upper hand. It's under 2.5 as well, or it's under 3. It's at 2.5. So it's under that key number.
Yeah.
And a home team, why is the Falcons getting that half a point on the road against Tampa Bay? I find that such an odd number. And I think Tampa Bay, look, Detroit was good. Detroit is good. And Detroit was very good against the Tampa Bay Bucks last week. Bucks coming off a bye. Offense didn't look that great. I think the offense looks better here. Yes, Atlanta's defenses look good. Under 200 yards passing, under 100 yards rushing that they allow per game. That's really good. So this defense has been great. But what ends up hurting bad defenses or good defenses is bad offense and turnovers. And it's just we're seeing way too much of that from Atlanta. So I'm all in on Tampa Bay. So that means I'm probably going to have to look in this game. Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, they're scoring a lot. Mike Evans seems to be a little bit more of a target for Baker Mayfield than Chris Godwin so far this season. So I would lean more Mike Evans. Mike Evans does lead them in receiving touchdowns, also leads them in yards with 386 yards. So I know sometimes it can go back and forth between Godwin and Evans, but new quarterback Baker Mayfield seems to have locked in on Mike Evans. So I like that more and his props more than I would Chris Godwin.
Yeah, and defensively, the Buccaneers have been great across the table. Even points, they're ranking 7th in the NFL, allowing just 17.6 points per game. To me, this feels like a game where whoever takes care of the ball better is going to get the win. That I think both Baker Mayfield and Desmond Ridder have that risk of being able to just cough one up at a bad moment in time. And I totally agree with you about the Mike Evans point. Mike Evans, to me, is a straight-up Hall of Famer. This guy produces no matter who his quarterback is. He has never had a season with under 1,000 yards receiving. I think that continues this year. I think I like that he's kind of establishing himself as that guy once again. And as great as Chris Godwin is, I do think this is Evans' show to run. So I like that he's getting first dibs, and I believe that he's going to continue that 1,000-yard streak this year.
Yeah, Tampa Bay, they're playing a dangerous game. They give up more yards than they get, and the offense is moving the ball particularly great. Again, though, they just seem to finish drives, and I liked Baker Mayfield enough this season. I just think Atlanta's going to turn the ball over, give the ball away.
Baker's been good.
He's been good. That's the thing. He's been smart. He's not a turnover machine like he used to be. That's something that I value in a game like this. Eventually down the road, I tried to bet Tampa Bay last week. I should have known this team, it's going to be tough for them to keep up playing this way. But in this game is not where I say that's going to happen. That's later on down the road in better games against better teams. But against Atlanta kind of their issues trump anything that could go wrong with Tampa Bay, and it does look like things are about to go wrong for them. All right, let's go to a break. Obviously, we got a few more games. We went over 2 of the 6 in the 1 o'clock games, and we'll go over the rest of those before we kick off here at 1 o'clock. But coming up next, I know you need fantasy advice, Sean Barnard. I know I need fantasy advice. With all the injuries, I think we all need some fantasy football advice. So we got the best. Roy Burton, Game Time Decision, has the newsletter come out. It is excellent. At the BS Line on Twitter. Roy Burton's going to join us next right here on Countdown to Payout, presented by Mall Chevrolet.
Now you can relive the greatest moments from our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
of people thought Devontae Smith would be a great fantasy receiver. He hasn't been. So you can kind of find some guys on the margins when you have fantasy seasons like this, and even weeks like last week. I don't know if you guys saw, but I think last week was the lowest scoring week in terms of average points since 2007. So it's just there just aren't that many points being scored. So again, it seems like random guys are having those 20, 30-point fantasy games each week. You just got to find the ones every week.
Yeah, and I think today we have some low totals as well. And as Sean Barnard mentioned earlier too, it's a bit of an adjustment for what it's been for the past few weeks, and that these numbers have continually gone under. I mean, especially for DFS, what games are we picking on here, especially in the 1 o'clock hour?
Yeah, the 1 o'clock games are not good. Yes, well, really, the main slate, what I call the main slate, the DFS slate, the 1 and the 4 o'clock games. There's 4 games with totals under 40. I mean, there's just not a prediction of a lot of points being scored. So if you're looking for any of these games in the 1 o'clock window to give you some points, I think you got to look, especially DFS wise. I think you got to look at that Buffalo game. I think you can kind of lock in on the Josh Allen. I think you can probably lock in on Stephon Diggs. I think James Cook probably has a decent game, given the fact that game should be a fairly easy win for Buffalo. DFS wise, I would probably lock in on those guys. But these other games like the Falcons, Buccaneers games, the Raiders, Bears game. I mean, unless you're playing these the defenses in these games, I don't know how much you're going to expect from a DFS standpoint, because there's just a lot of uncertainty in half of these games.
Yeah, just to jump in with the exact stat here on the over/under, that so far this season the unders are 56 and 37 on the year. So 60.2% of the time the under has been hitting. We are seeing the lines adjust to that, and from our perspective, from a fantasy football perspective, and really a gambling perspective, nobody wins when this happens. Nobody wants to see the points going under.
No fun.
No, we want points.
We want football to be fun. We want scoring. And we have talked about a lot, Bernard and I, about the Ravens-Lions game. It's the biggest game on the slate. Is that one that we can kind of attack here in DFS? I know for me, I love for longest reception. I think he has a big game, but is this one that could potentially, I know both defenses have been really good, so it's tough, but I love these offenses, and I think a competitive game could be a bit of a shootout here, or at least potentially get to that.
Yeah, I actually like the game from a DFS, fantasy standpoint. I like the Detroit offense a lot. And I know Montgomery's not going to play, and this should be I would hope this is the first game we really see a healthy dose of Jahmyr Gibbs. But I think Detroit is going to be able to the ball a little bit against Baltimore. Again, I don't know if it's a shootout, but I wouldn't be surprised if Detroit puts up 20, 21 points in this game. I wouldn't be surprised if Baltimore pretty much matches that. I think Lamar Jackson, probably anytime touchdown guys is almost automatic. Dave Flowers is going to get looks, and Mark Andrews is going to get looks. Anything outside of that, I'm not certain of. So, but those 3 guys, I'm in favor of. I like this game. I mean, I don't, again, I don't trust the Ravens running backs necessarily, because that running back room is kind of a mess, because it's just random. Gus Edwards will either give you 1 yard or 6 yards, and it's either one or the other, and it's never anything in the middle, never anything more than 6. So it's a little bit too inconsistent for me. So I don't know about those running backs, but Lamar Jackson, Dave Flowers, Mark Andrews, DFS wise, and again from the Detroit standpoint, any of those receivers, Jared Goff and Jahmyr Gibbs, I think I would like them as well from a DFS spot.
Yeah, and 2 of the best offenses, or at least one of the best offensive games that is going to be happening today for the main slate, Chiefs and Chargers. I imagine we'll have some play in this, but the thing is, Chiefs aren't scoring that many points. They're more of a defensive team. The Chiefs just play a lot different now. Is this as much of a slam dunk of a DFS game as usual, or should we take into account now that, hey, Chiefs defense is good and these games look a lot different?
So here's the thing. I think it's only a slam dunk type of game just because the rest of the slate is so bad. You know what I mean? This game is over under total 48, and which is the highest by far in the main slate. So
crazy.
If you're playing the main DFS slate, I mean, I would play it because again, every other game on this card that you can play, that spot is pretty bad. So yeah, it's really bad. So I love. I mean, from a DFS spot, Joshua Palmer's like $4,800. I mean, he's pretty cheap. Rasheed Rice, I think, is $4,000. There's a lot of low cost options. There are a few low cost options you can slide in your lineup. I think who are going to be pretty good. Gerald Everett, I think, is $3,500. You can kind of fill out the gaps in your lineups with these guys. But if you want to play a DFS lineup that's, if you want to stack, let's say Mahomes and Kelsey, or if you want to stack, Allen and Herbert, and make those your focus guys, I really wouldn't be, I wouldn't be opposed to that, because again, a lot of these games in the slate are pretty bad today.
Yeah, some of the inactives, as we're talking with Roy Burton on the Gambler Hotline, going over some fantasy football advice for today, which has been very hard to come by. But Roy Burton is helping us out with that here on Countdown to Payout, presented by Mall Chevrolet. We do have some actives here, one in particular that I'm interested in, because the Cleveland Browns, they're taking on Indianapolis. That game, 39.5 total. It's weird to say it's one of the higher totals for the 1 o'clock games, but it's just Kareem Hunt started to get more carries. He started to get more involved. Are you seeing now potential for Kareem Hunt to be used in lineups and to be put in to lineups or even DFS, or is there still with Ford going to be too much of a share there?
I think for today, it's probably still going to be majority Ford. I had a Kareem lineup in my initial lineups this week, and there was a little concern about whether or not he was going to be healthy, but he's asked if he's ready to go. I still think we're probably a week or so away from Kareem Hunt getting more of those touches in that Browns lineup. So if I had to play a guy, I'd probably play Jerome Ford and not even waste a DFS spot on Kareem Hunt yet. But I think we're going to get to a point where I think Kareem Hunt's going to be a flex option in DFS lineups. And he won't be that expensive, so you can probably slot him in there in a couple weeks for less than $5,000. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, in Washington, New York, I want to get to that game. Sam Howell, not the best, but still productive, 1,500 yards, 9 touchdowns. We know that offense could get moving with Washington, but Daniel Jones out, Tyrod Taylor in. Is there, the offense isn't great. They're averaging 294 yards per game, New York. So not very good. Right. But with Tyrod running quarterback, is there any interest at all in Tyrod, or at least New York's offense, but overall in this game?
Actually, I like this game just because Washington is probably going to have big hands for most of this game. It's going to be a low-scoring game, so I like this game from the standpoint that I think Brian Robinson Jr. is going to have a pretty decent game. He's had 60. I think his over/under is 62.5. I think it's a pretty good number for him. And last year against the Giants, he averaged 90 yards, more than 90 yards a game in those two games. And the Giants' rush defense is awful. I think they're going to close to 150 yards a game. Rushing yards. So, yeah, I think Brian Robinson today, 62.5 is a good number. I would probably put him in my DFS lineups as well. I think his number is $5,800. And for a guy like Brian Robinson, going to get today, he should get, I would imagine in a game like this against the Giants, I would imagine he gets about 20 touches. So I think that probably, comes out to about 80 or so rushing yards-ish, and maybe he finds the end zone, and that's pretty good value for that money.
Yeah, and Roy, in addition to all the injuries, it's also a packed week for bye week. So we have the Carolina Panthers, Cincinnati Bengals, Dallas Cowboys, New York Jets, Tennessee Titans, and Houston Texans all on a bye this week. So that kind of forces hands for fantasy owners and daily fantasy players to think outside the box a little bit. Who are some of your favorite targets that maybe you're grabbing on the waiver wire this week, or guys that you're taking a flyer on that you otherwise wouldn't because of the situation?
Yeah, that's a good question. In fantasy world, people have called it Buy-Mageddon this week because there's just so many guys who are just out on buys and are injured and things like that. So DFS wise, I'm going to take a flyer on Royce Freeman, who apparently appears to be the guy in the Rams backfield today. A lot of folks thought it was going to be Zach Evans, but they promoted Royce Freeman and Darrell Henderson from practice squad this week, and apparently Royce Freeman got the snaps with the first team on Friday. So, and he's the bare minimum $4,000 in DFS. So I would go with somebody like him. Other than that, I'd probably take a flyer on maybe a couple tight ends out there. I like Michael Mayer today because again, this is going to be an ugly game. That Bears Raiders game. So it's probably you're going to see Brian Hoyer versus super agent Tyler Bagent today. I think that's where we're going to get quarterback
so
wise.
Gross.
So you're going to see a whole lot of check downs. And,
man, Roy, that's a lot of names that I expect in the preseason. Every name you said there, I expect in the preseason, not in the regular season. There was not one player there that I went, that's a good football player.
Yeah, no, it really is week 3 preseason type of guys we're going to get today. It's not a really good, if you want to, for those of you who play DFS, if you want to keep your money in your pocket or at least just play the Eagles game as a standalone game, I wouldn't be mad. I really wouldn't be mad.
As Sean Brace always says, we only have about 18 weeks of this. Got to take advantage of it while it's here. Now, I do, because you talked about the Rams there, and you're talking about Royce Freeman. This Pittsburgh defense isn't like Pittsburgh defense like it used to be. They got, I think, lucky because Baltimore last week just dropped every single pass that they could, or a couple of weeks ago, dropped every single pass that they could. Now they're going up against a good Rams passing offense. They give up 265 yards passing the Steelers defense. Is this one where, Puka Nakua's been great, Cooper Kupp's been great, and Matthew Stafford's been putting up some numbers? This passing offense too, I think. Is there any targets there potentially for you?
I love Puka. I think Puka has a bounce back game from what we saw last week. Again, he's still getting the targets, and I'm a huge target guy. If a guy gets targets, like those targets are going to turn into something. And he still had 7 targets last week. He dropped a touchdown. I mean, he could have had a touchdown to go with that showing last week. And if he scored a touchdown, if he caught that ball, he would have had something around like 15 fantasy points. And, it wouldn't have been that bad. But I mean, the Steelers defense, the Steelers pass defense is bad. Their run defense is, I think, it's like 5th worst or 6th worst in the league. So you can move the ball in the Steelers. So yeah, I like the Rams a lot in this game. Like just from a fantasy wise and from a straight up betting wise, because I just don't see how Pittsburgh keeps up with them offensively.
All right, so the most important question of the day, not fantasy football related, but we got a game tonight, Roy, in South Philly here. Kelly Green's back. First loss this season, so vibes maybe a little bit down, or the Kelly Green jerseys making you feel pretty good about a bounce back tonight against Miami?
I see when I first saw this line, I was like, you know what? Like I think this might be a Miami game. Mm-hmm. But then I kept seeing over the week, all the video from the Kelly Green stuff, and then
there it is.
Randall Cunningham, running around in the Kelly Greens, and I can't help myself, man. Like it's just one of those things. Like once I see it, it kind of activates something in me. So I think we got to go with the Birds tonight. I think the Birds get it done tonight. Sunday Night Football. Like the crowd's going to be hot. The Phillies won last night. They're going to win tomorrow. How's it going to be hot? I think the vibes are too good right now.
I love how confident you are. You just slip it in. Phillies are going to win tomorrow too. Eagles are going to do well. You just slip that right in, right? Seamlessly. All right, that was well done. Do you see the total 52.5? Do you think we're going to see points in that game? A lot of points, as much as at least the total is expecting.
Yeah, betting wise, that's really the only thing I really like. Well, actually, no, I take that back. I do like the total. I like the 52.5. I think we see points. Betting wise, I think I want to kind of take a page out of Sean Bernard's book. I do love that at Jalen Hurts over 262.5 passing yards, just passing yards. Although I think he does run a little bit, but over 262, I think is a pretty conservative number for Jalen Hurts. I mean, he's hit that number in the last 4 games. It's going to be a game where they're going to score points and need to score points, so they're going to have to throw the ball. So, in terms of betting wise, give me that over 262 passing yards for Jalen Hurts.
Yeah, and I do think this is a game that's pretty rich in the player props because there are going to be a ton of points. The over, I do think, is the way to play it. I flip-flopped a little bit this week. I struggle because I just can't see how this Eagles team is going to slow down Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle in this passing attack. But I think the way to capitalize on that is pretty much hammering player props across the board. I mean, Tyreek Hill over 98.5 receiving yards, Jalen Waddle 60.5, A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, take them all. But I think this is going to be a game where there are points running up and down. So that excites me. I guess from a fantasy and player prop perspective, this is the game that I think entices me the most. Would you say that's the case too, Roy?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the thing. For those of you, if you want to play the DFS competitions that include all the games of the week, then yeah, this is the game that you focus on, because this is the game from a fantasy DFS spot that you want to play. But if you want to play this as an individual game, as a showdown game, as DraftKings has, again, there are a ton of guys. There's a ton of ways you can go with this game.
How would you go in a showdown lineup?
Quarterbacks. Yeah, I would obviously you want to roster both the quarterbacks. Obviously you want to roster Tyreek Hill. I would, do what I can to make one of those quarterbacks the captain, like 1.5, so you get 1.5 points for those guys. So Hurts, Tua, and Tyreek are going to be on all my rosters. And I'll probably try to figure out, how to get, either A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith in those lineups. Nothing for nothing. Like Jeff Wilson just got activated by the Dolphins, and he's $200, which is literally the bare minimum in a DFS showdown game. If you want to load up, you can probably slot him into one of your flex spots at $200, and then just load up on those other guys. That's probably a really good way to go, because I think Jeff Wilson's probably going to slide right back in that RB2. He might not do a lot, but I mean, if he gets you 10 yards, you only pay $200 for him, and that still gave you the option to roster a Jalen and a Tua and a Tyreek and a Devontae Smith. So if you're looking for a way to kind of load up on the superstars, Jeff Wilson at literally the minimum $200 might be a good way to go.
Does Julio Jones have any fantasy impact at all?
He's here to dominate.
I don't think much. Yeah, he's here to dominate. Yeah, wait and see, right? So, yeah, I don't. Yeah, I don't know how much of the offense he's learned over the past 5 days. I mean, he just got elevated from the practice squad yesterday. I mean, again, he might catch a pass or two. He's more. I guess he's more of a fantasy option than Zacchaeus. But I mean, other than that, I don't think he's going to give you much tonight.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I know it's you know what? It's fun. It's for the vibes. We get to see Julio Jones and Kelly Green, which is actually, something I would have mocked up in like some kind of graphics thing years ago. And so that is pretty cool. You get to see that. Other than that, provides little to no value. He'll probably know the offense, catch on to things quick. He's a vet. But yeah, I don't think much impact. For impacts, though, Roy Burton, you are a big impact on this show. And for fantasy lineups across the globe, where can everybody find your work and all of your fantasy advice?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. The main Twitter handle for fantasy stuff is at GT Decision. You can also check out my website, GameTimeDecision.net. It's a Substack. We send out newsletters 3 times a week, giving you fantasy and DFS advice and all sorts of things. But if you just want to talk about sports or whatever, you can also hit me up on Twitter at the BS Line.
Or wrestling as well. We can do that at the BS Line.
Or wrestling.
Love it, Roy. Appreciate it. Enjoy the day. Good luck with all of your fantasy lineups and bets this week.
Thank you, gentlemen. Go Birds.
Go Birds. Oh, I love that. A good Go Birds. Speaking of Go Birds, how about we talk some birds next? Let's just go over our picks for the 1:00 games as well. Kickoff's about to be in 20 minutes. So let's get our bets in. That's coming up next here on Countdown to Payout, presented by Moss Chevrolet.
Lowe's knows pros want savings now. That's why, as an MVP's Pro Rewards member, you get volume savings on orders of $1,500 or more at the Pro Desk. And there's more. We've lowered our prices on
3rd down and 6 for Miami. Back to throw Sua. Looking, fires down the right side. He's got Tyreek. Touchdown, Miami.
The time is now to find those last-second winners. This is Countdown to Payout, powered by Mall Chevy.
Yes, it is time to get in those winners. Week 7, about to kick off. 1 o'clock games, about to kick off. And we are getting in those bets right now on Countdown to Payout, presented by Mall Chevrolet. Bernard, you have your picks. Are you ready to go? I have mine. I'll let you start first, sir. I'll let you go.
All right, I'm locked and loaded, and I'll start off. We talked about this game a lot, but Ravens -3 will be one of my picks today. I feel good about that game. We talked a lot of the reasons why. I also feel good about the Bills -7.5. That I'm even more confident on, that I think this is going to be a stomping against New England. Also really like the Commanders -3 against the Giants. We haven't hit on that game very much. I think the Giants are a straight-up bad football team at this point. Until they give me some reason to have belief in them, I'm not taking it. And as much as I'm typically a guy who likes to stay away from divisional matchups, this is the same Giants team that got blown out 40-0 by the Cowboys in opening week. It's time to forget about last year, look at them for what they are, and what they are is a bad football team. Commanders -3. I also like the Colts +3.5. I feel good about that matchup. I'm believing the Gardner Minshew hype, feeling good about that game.
All right, we don't have to go that far.
Well,
believing enough, I guess.
Against the Cleveland Browns, I believe in them. I guess I'll go that far. Deshaun Watson looking like he's suiting up, which, to be honest, gives me more confidence in this play, that I feel better against Minshew than I would against rather than a duel against PJ Walker. I don't like the Deshaun Watson thing. It's just bad vibes. He has been playing well, and the injury thing is just very weird. How he was clear, didn't suit up, all those things. The bottom line is I think the Colts keep this game a game. I think it stays within that field goal range, and I feel good for the Colts to get the cover. And the last one that I have here is the Eagles and Dolphins over 52.5. I think that is the way to play this game. I flip-flop back and forth all week on the Dolphins, on the Eagles. The Kelly Green is definitely infiltrating my mind a little bit, but the bottom line is I just see points. So I'm going with the 52.5 here.
All you're seeing is just a lot of green, including Kelly Green for the Eagles. I do, because I was very close to picking Indianapolis. So I do want to mention that game, because 3.5 seems like it's a lot of points on the road for a Browns team that doesn't score.
Right.
The Browns are a weird extreme here. They don't have any offense at all. This is one of the worst bottom 5 offenses in the league, and Deshaun Watson's part of that problem, so him coming back doesn't help anything. It's not like P.J. Walker was the reason for that. P.J. Walker had one game. By the way, they ended up beating San Francisco in that game.
Played pretty well.
But Deshaun Watson is part of the problem offensively. But this Cleveland Browns defense, how long can they continue to keep this up? That's I don't know how they're going to continue with Jim Schwartz to have one of the best defenses in the league right now.
Yeah, 5th in points allowed at 15.4 points per game. They are doing it.
And if you look at even more than just that, you look at things like the EPA
first in
for
yards.
Cleveland. They're first by a mile in EPA per play defensively. This is by far the best defense in the league. And is Gardner Minshew going to beat that? So I have a tough time, because also that's eventually, I think that defense is really good. Cleveland's eventually going to run out. That defense can't play that well all the time. Again, we're talking about head and shoulders above the rest of the league. So right now they're minus 0.249 EPA per play, which is, again, tops. The next one after that is Baltimore minus 0.161.
Wow.
That's crazy. Like, the gap between Baltimore and Dallas, the next team, is 0.161 with Baltimore, negative 0.161 to negative 0.154. Like, this is just way better than everything else. And at some point, it's got to stop. I don't know if Gardner Minshew's that, though. We've seen Gardner Minshew. He came in and played well when Richardson got hurt a couple of weeks ago. But we have seen when he starts, he's been awful. He was bad with the Eagles. He's bad with Indianapolis now. I don't love the 3.5 because I don't love the hook. And I don't know what the line was like previously, but I imagine it had to have gone up a little bit now that the Deshaun Watson news that he's going to play, and that sort of bumped it up, I guess. I still can't take it with the hook. I can't take it over the 3. I think that's a lot of points to cover on the road with an offense I can't trust. But at first I was looking at Indianapolis. I can't do it. And it was getting close for me to wanting to bet Cleveland. It's just that offense I cannot trust. But I do want to go over bets. I do like Baltimore laying the 3. I like a lot of home favorites today. Baltimore -3 against Detroit. I think this is a really good spot for Baltimore, especially for Baltimore's offense. It's a secondary in Detroit that can be beat. I'm all over Zay Flowers props. His longest reception now has actually gone up, so I guess somebody bet it, but it was at 20.5. It's now up to 21.5. So I still like that number. I think he's going to have at least close to a 30, 40-yard play, but I liked it better at over 20.5. He had gone over that number in most of his games, except for barring 2, I think. So over 20.5 is better. 21.5 I still like. But still, Baltimore laying the 3. Tampa Bay laying the 3 as well. Atlanta's offense is going to stink until Desmond Ridder is not under center for them. Yes, we know Bijan Robinson can get that offense moving, and they are probably going to score a bit. Tampa Bay gives up yards, but it's turnovers. And Desmond Ridder's been one of the most turnover-prone quarterbacks in the league. He doesn't drop back all that much either. So, like, this per-attempt thing, and he throws an interception per attempt, is up there. It's a high rate, and I think he's going to have to throw. And if he does, it's on the road. They're terrible on the road. They're 0-3 on the road so far this season, or 0-2, excuse me. They were undefeated at home. They just lost their first home game last week when I bet them. Thank you, Atlanta. This is, I think, a good bounce-back spot for Tampa Bay, though. They just lost to Detroit. Detroit, as we said, very good team. I think the offense bounces back. Baker Mayfield plays better. Mike Evans, I like him for an anytime touchdown at plus 155. But I think Tampa Bay's offense at least capitalizes on the turnovers. Atlanta's defense doesn't give up a lot of yards, but still, you don't need many yards when you're getting turnovers. You're getting short fields, and Mike Evans and company are going to score. So I like that. Other than that, the 1 o'clock games don't really appeal to me all that much. In the 4 o'clock games, -3.5 for the LA Rams against Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's offense won't be able to keep up, and Pittsburgh's secondary is not good this season. You think of Pittsburgh, you think of really good defense, low-scoring games, tight games, but also a very much in-the-mud type of game, usually for Pittsburgh. That's not the case anymore.
Yeah.
They give up a lot of yards. They would have gotten beat bad and burned bad by Lamar Jackson in the passing game a couple of weeks ago if they would have caught those passes, Baltimore, like Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham dropping touchdowns. But that's not going to be the case here. Rams offense can move it. They have 2 great wide receivers, a great offensive coordinator in mind in Sean McVay. I think this is going to be a big passing day for Matthew Stafford in the passing game and those wide receivers. So I do like the LA Rams laying the 3.5. A couple of leans that I had. New York, I loved the way Tyrod Taylor played, actually. It's just Buffalo, tough game on the road. And some weird things are happening. But Washington's not that good to be laying 3 on the road.
Sure. Big fan of, just letting the clock expire right before halftime.
Love it.
Yeah,
it's amazing. Yeah, run the ball.
I think that's the biggest thing that's confusing me about this Giants team is I came into the year believing they're a well-coached team, that they're at least going to, I guess, execute the right way. It's been far from that. There's been a ton of execution issues. We're coming off back-to-back weeks in which Brian DeBull has come off yelling at his starting quarterback for a stupid mental mistake with clock management. I don't know if I should pin that more on coach, player. I have no idea. But there is something going wrong communication-wise there. And it's for not just one quarterback. It's for both. Yeah. Yeah,
so I find that wild.
That's more or less what pushed me to Washington. I don't think Washington is anything special, but I think there's some real internal issues with this Giants team that it's surprising to me that these are happening. But while that is happening, I am a kick a guy when it's down. I'm going to call it as I see it right now. And right now, the Giants are a team that I want to stay far away from.
Yeah, they are. There's really nothing to like about this Giants team. It's just I don't like much about Washington now. I think we're starting to see that they're having some problems. They did win against Atlanta again. Desmond Ridder had every chance to win that game and just threw it away over and over again. Before that, gave up 40 points to Chicago, 34 to Philly, 37 to Buffalo. Their defense isn't good. And so I think this is a game that Tyrod Taylor can keep the New York Giants in it, keep it close. And then Saquon Barkley changes things too. I think as he gets healthier, that's going to be better. You know what? I talked myself into it.
You're in now.
The Saquon Barkley factor. They give up 129 yards rushing, which is a lot. Also, the Giants on the other end give up 147.5 yards rushing. So I think Brian Robinson, as Roy Burton said, that's a good play. If you want to take Brian Robinson's rushing props, I like. But I think this is a big day for Saquon Barkley. He's come back for a couple of weeks. I think the offense has looked better since he's been back. Tyrod Taylor played better than Daniel Jones, and that was on the road. It was in Buffalo, so that was a tough environment to play. And I think Tyrod Taylor played well. Giants aren't going to lose every game for the rest of the season, I don't think. This is a divisional game. Giants are at home. Tyrod Taylor, I think, is better than Daniel Jones, or at least at this point, playing better. Jones just looks lost. But I think the running ability for Tyrod Taylor helps out a lot, too. but Saquon Barkley changes the game. That is a difference maker for them, and I thought that's what helped them against Buffalo. He had 24 carries, 93 yards, nothing overly crazy, but now you have to think about it. You have to put guys in the box. Things are a little bit more open for Tyrod Taylor and that New York Giants offense. So if those scoring drives, instead of resulting in field goals, those scoring drives are going to have to result in scores and touchdowns because we know Eric Bieniemy's offense can score, and that Giants defense is good. But I think this game is going to be close. I like the Giants getting the 3. I think this is a good spot for them to get a win, and Washington getting too many points here, I think, on the road. All right, Bernard, that's locked in. Everything ready to go? You ready for some football, Sean Bernard?
Oh, yeah. It is that time.
I am ready as well. All right, we're going to go to a break. Countdown to Payout, presented by Mall Chevrolet for 8 years in a row now. Mall Chevrolet has been South Jersey's #1 Chevy dealer. I think I know why. Because they treat their customers right, and that's why Mall Chevy was voted a top 100 dealer in the country for customer satisfaction. It also helps that their motto is simply, they sell Chevys for less. Not for more, for less. Come see for yourself. Visit Mall Chevrolet on Haddonfield Road in Cherry Hill, across from the Cherry Hill Mall, or online at mallchevy.com. Find new roads at Mall Chevrolet, mallchevy.com. Week 7 NFL action coming up next here on the game.
Check the mail for Valpak, and you could be an instant winner. That's right. Tucked in with those coupons is your chance to win big.
We are close to week 7 being underway here on a beautiful Sunday for some football. Who's the first voice you hear from this, Sean Barnard? Like, you hear this music, what's the first announcer voice that you think of when you hear this?
Oh, I'm bad with the announcer names. I'm going to go.
Oh, what?
I am. I'm terrible with it.
How do you not like announcer?
I don't know. I just get lost in the football.
They're in our homes every Sunday.
They are. Cold, kind of. I guess metaphorically in our homes.
I think of Kenny Albert.
Okay.
Kenny Albert, Moose Johnson.
Okay.
I always think of that one. Obviously, Joe Buck for the longest time.
Yeah, Joe
but
Buck.
Even when I wouldn't even think Joe Buck, because Joe Buck's the 4 o'clock games. When the 1 o'clock games say when Sundays start, I'm always used to hearing like Kenny Albert.
To be honest, Scott Hansen has like monopolized
and now he
the
has,
guy.
yeah.
Like that's all
he
I
is
think
now
of.
the only voice you hear that's kind of game. That's really good. Yeah, that's a lot of change in the way we view the NFL. All right, so Scott Hansen sets the stage, and we are about to get kicked off these games. Again, the action that we're looking at, Baltimore, Detroit, all of a sudden, now the best game on the slate. That's a game previously. I don't know if you would have said that with Detroit. Detroit looks like they're one of the best teams that are going to contend in the NFC for potentially that 1 seed. Right now, though, there was a slight change. Baltimore's now -2.5. That's juiced up at -130. Again, we're going to be going over the live action. We have all the touchdown scores here ready to go. I'm on Zay Flowers props, over 20.5 longest reception. Also, the Baltimore Ravens laying the 3. The New York Giants +3.5.
We're head-to-head on that one.
Also, Tampa Bay -3. -2.5, excuse me. We are head-to-head on that one.
The kickoffs are all going down now. We're having the first moments of the game, so enough with the talking about it. Time to check, rock, and play for most of these guys.
Yeah, and as play starts to settle in, how about we start off with some Eagles here? Big game tonight.
Mm-hmm.
The Eagles' first loss of the season, trying to come back, bounce back, get the win. I just think we play spots in the NFL, right? We don't play week to week. I don't even think matchups certainly have something to do with it too. How the Eagles match up against the Dolphins, what it's like in the trenches, how these secondaries match up with the wide receivers. All of that stuff comes into account. But I think in the NFL, it's a lot of the spot. And when you play a team, and I think for Miami to go on the road here in Lincoln Financial Field after the Eagles just suffered their first loss of the season, their worst game I think they've ever played with Jalen Hurts as the starter.
Yeah.
And I even think that goes back into his second year when he first became the full-time starter. That's the worst game they've ever played with him, I think, under center. And he didn't have a large part to do with that until the fourth quarter and the turnovers started to happen. But it was sloppy things. It's things like Dallas Goedert dropping that for the interception, fumbles with DeAndre Swift. I think if they clean that up, and for I think my money, I think they will. They have before, and they've been pretty clean. Jalen Hurts interceptions are up at 7, so that's a bit of a concern. But 1 interception doesn't bother me. 4 turnovers bothers me more than just 1. So I think they're going to keep it clean. Their offense can move. A.J. Brown's going to have a big day. The secondary stands up. Jalen Ramsey, we know, is out for the year. But Xavier Howard is questionable, so he might not be able to play in this game. And the Eagles are healthy. They got Slate back. They got Lane Johnson back. They got Jalen Carter back. All those guys ready to go. I think that's big time. This secondary for Miami, again, can be beat. I think the Eagles do it. I love Jalen Hurts over passing yards, like you just said. That's a really good prop by you. And I'm pretty much just going to tell you on that one. I like it. But I think the Eagles match up well. And again, I like the spot. I like that they're home. I like that it's a Sunday night game. I like that the crowd's going to be there. I like the motivation of trying to bounce back after a bad loss last week.
Yeah, I think this is the week we truly find out what this Eagles team is. That yes, they're 5-1, but they've been an ugly 5-1, and it's been troublesome. Is that Zay Flowers?
Is that Zay Flowers? I think that's already over 20.5. I think it's already over 20.5. Is that over 20.5?
Yeah,
is that over 20.5? Are we already cashing a countdown to payout?
5
yes,
minutes in.
we are.
5 minutes into the
How
1 o'clock
about
game.
that?
And an out winner.
Woo! And Jerome Ford now down the field. Indianapolis, here you go. Oh, no. Oh, I thought he was going to get caught for a second. Touchdown. We're talking a bit about Kareem Hunt, Jerome Ford. That's what it's going to look like. Jerome Ford's going to get the carry.
He did. And the first touchdown of the game for Jerome Ford. Let me pull up these odds here.
I imagine it's not going to be too high of a number. And you got to zoom in a little bit on that.
Yeah,
you look like Brace. You look like Brace trying to get the eyesight.
I am. I'm feeling old trying to find these numbers here.
All right. So if we go to Detroit, or excuse me, if we go to Cleveland, I imagine, look, Jerome Ford, he was going to get the carries. His number wasn't going to be too high. First touchdown score plus 600, anytime plus 110. So you were cashing a 6-1 ticket. By the way, that was the shortest odds for a first touchdown score in that game. So Jerome Ford's going to get that. Now, Kareem Hunt's still plus 180 for a touchdown. So that's still in play, and he's going to get carries. But that's the reason why Indianapolis and Cleveland too, it's hard to bet against Cleveland just because of Watson. I know the offense is bad, but that's always the potential for them. They don't do it as often, big plays in the running game and running game overall being as effective because Nick Chubb is great, and you can't really replace Nick Chubb. Jerome Ford, though, is good enough that they can get some really good plays out of the running game, and I think that's a good example of it there. Now, Colts are down 7-0, and Gardner Minshew has to try and play catch-up already against the best defense in the league.
Yeah, not great. Not a great spot here.
That's a terrible spot to be in. So there was too many ways there, I think, for Indianapolis to lose this game, and this is one of those. Getting down early, running game working for Cleveland. Now the Colts offense have to go to work. Now we do have a third down here. By the way, that was cashing the over 20.5 longest reception. Zay Flowers, 1 reception, longest so far reception of 46 yards. So
well done,
flew
Jansen.
over that. I'll take the pat on the back.
Yeah,
I'll
well
take
done.
the green check mark, and I'll take the well done from my co-host, Sean Barnard. Again, countdown to payout presented all by Mall Chevrolet. And for 8 years in a row now, Mall Chevrolet has been South Jersey's #1 Chevy dealer. It could be because they treat their customers right. And that's why Mall Chevy was voted a top 100 dealer in the country for customer satisfaction. Simply put, their motto is they sell Chevys for less, not for more. They sell Chevys for less. So see for yourself. Visit Mall Chevrolet on Haddonfield Road in Cherry Hill, across from the Cherry Hill Mall, or online at mallchevy.com. Find new roads at Mall Chevrolet. Mallchevy.com. Ravens
Lamar
go for it on
Jackson,
4th down.
anytime.
That is, again, the difference maker. Detroit's been doing well against the run, but they don't see running quarterbacks often. This is the most athletic quarterback, best running quarterback that they've seen so far this season, and that's already making an impact. And by the way, Lamar is still looking excellent both in the passing game and running the ball. He still has excellent speed, but the fact that they can get big explosive plays, they're doing well, I think, in short yardage plays in the passing game with Odell Beckham Jr. that they converted on for a first down. Everything just seems to be humming along with this Baltimore Ravens offense. At times it looks bad. Drops have not helped. New offense, injuries, it all kind of piled up on them. But for the most part, Lamar Jackson has played like one of the top 3 to 5 quarterbacks in the league so far this season, and certainly starting off this way today.
Absolutely. And he cashes that plus 800 for the first touchdown in that matchup. So 8-1 there, plus 140 in the anytime, which I know you spoke about being excited about the Lamar Jackson anytime touchdown as well. And yeah, I totally agree. Lamar to me is a perennial underrated quarterback that he still, despite being an MVP, despite having a very impressive resume, he doesn't seem to get his flowers in the way that a lot of these guys do. So I am rooting for Lamar. I'm excited about this Ravens team. And as we mentioned going in, this is a statement performance. He looks up to the task in the early minutes in this one. Flips over to this game, the Raiders and Bears. We have not spoken about this one much. I do think this is a good spot for good reason. But I do think this is a good spot for the Bears to get a win here. That it's kind of a situational, if not now, but win to me that I think this Bears team is better than their 1-5 record would indicate. And we're also kind of at the area where guys are playing for their jobs, where between coaches, between Justin Fields, between all these guys on roster, they need to get some wins. And against Brian Hoyer, against this Raiders team, which straight up I just don't see very good. We know there was a noise this week of Devontae Adams speaking to reporters a little bit unhappy with his targets and the overall offensive structure. To me, this feels like a matchup where the Bears could come in and get a sneaky win. That line snuck all the way up to plus 120 right before kickoff. That's something to keep an eye on in that game.
Yeah, certainly. All right, looking at some of the other NFL actions so far, it does look like New England was able to put points on the board early.
They needed
4 carries, 22 yards, also a 25-yard reception from their tight end, Pharaoh Brown. They get a field goal. They're up 3-0. So Buffalo about to get the ball back on the road, down 3 early. Again, as we mentioned, Jerome Ford, long touchdown run for 6. Browns up 7-0.
And Gardner Minshew responds with the ugly jerseys. Touchdown right away. There we go.
Hey, this is flag on the play, though.
It was free
Sean
play.
Brace. Oh, was it a free play? Okay.
Yeah.
Sean Brace and I, over and over again, like, oh, a touchdown. There was a flag. A touchdown. There was a flag. So I don't want to get burned by the flag, but it does look like it is an offside, which it is. Penalty declined.
Touchdown.
Gardner Minshew to Josh Downs. How about Cleveland and Indianapolis, highest scoring games so far. Is this the one that's going to go over the total, Sean Barnard? Are we going to get a shootout in Indy? Looking that way so far. And look, that's a big first play for Indianapolis. Again, Gardner Minshew, I did not know what he was going to look like. Here's a bit of that, though, regression that we saw. There's a blown coverage, easy play. Josh Downs was wide open, no safety help, no nothing. It was easy. And Cleveland has made everything look so incredibly hard for every offense that they've played, and it was only going to be a matter of time before the mistakes happened, before they gave up a play like that. And so far, they did. That game tied 7-7. The Raiders, 41-yard field goal.
No good.
Oh, my goodness.
And the Joshua Downs touchdown, the first touchdown at plus 1,600, the anytime at plus 340, those odds brought to you by DraftKings Sportsbook. And one of the things that I think you touched on, Jansen, is we're going to start to see what these teams truly are. That through 7 weeks, there's starting to grow enough of a sample size to read. I think there's a lot of teams that are going to regress to the mean a little bit. The Browns, one of them defensively, that I believe is fit into that category. So that's something to watch throughout this week of we're starting to see what these teams really are, that a hot start or a cold start could deflate or inflate your numbers one way or another. So we're going to start to see what these teams truly are.
We already are having some turnover issues with Josh Allen. Just threw an interception to New England. So New England has some life here in this game early on. Tyrod Taylor deep down the field. Oh, look at those jerseys. I like those too. I like the throwbacks.
Way better than the Colts jerseys they're rocking. Not a fan of those at all, but the Giants ones do look nice. And my guy, Jalen Hyatt, big fan
I
of
know.
his.
Look, I think Brian Dable certainly, he's getting a lot of criticism, but this roster isn't great. I think they overperformed by a wide margin last year. They were not that good, and they're not ever going to be that good this year. But I do think Dable is doing a good job of trying to fix this offense with some of the players that he has. Jalen Hyatt's a rookie. Jalen Hyatt maybe he's great speed, but he's probably going to need some work to become a really good NFL wide receiver. But it just seems like Dable is able to work him in. Now Saquon Barkley's there, able to open things up in the running game, which helps the passing game out. And Tyrod Taylor, look, he's throwing a good ball. He has a good deep ball, and I think we're starting to see that. But as much as we can criticize Dable, I do think at times, at least right now, as he knows they're bad, they're not getting good performances out of players that they were last year. And so I think he is starting to slowly shift and adjust to that. And now we're getting things like Jalen Hyatt deep down the field more and connecting on more of those deep passes. You have one of the best deep threats already now in the NFL with Hyatt, and they're using him, and they're able to find ways to get the rookie involved. And here comes Saquon Barkley continuing. Hopefully not an injury, though, which it does look like.
A little bit of an ugly hit there.
Yeah, ugly hit in the sideline, bowling into the Washington sideline, and players on the sideline. Seems like he's good. Shaking his head, yes, ready to go. But certainly something to look out there. But Saquon Barkley, 4 rushes, 21 yards already for Saquon Barkley. Look, Saquon Barkley, to me, is the difference maker. I think that's why you bet, or at least not you, but I bet the Giants in this game. I think it is a bit of a change there for New York. That was one of the problems that they had, and I think Saquon Barkley fixes a lot of things. They won last year not because of Jones. They didn't win last year because they were throwing the ball for 300 yards. They won last year because Barkley was very good, not only carrying the ball, but in the passing game, made things easy for Jones, play action easy for Jones. They're able to get some scoring drives because of Saquon Barkley, and now they're doing so again. And look, Matt Breida is a good backup as well. Breida is in, getting some carries. They're in a short 2nd and 4 here, but so far, so good. I've liked what I've seen from the New York Giants. We'll continue to update you on that game. Again, Ravens up 7-0. First drive, first score for Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offense. Lamar Jackson already 59 yards passing, 3 carries, 12 yards for Lamar and a score. And Lions, 4th and 10, they are about to punt the ball away. So a chance early on here for Baltimore to put some points up. We know that offense can get started early, and they are doing so. And how about that? On command, a close one, but Jalen Hyatt, a chance for a touchdown, drops it. That would have been nice. That's a good ball. Again, good ball from Tyrod Taylor, though.
Yeah, absolutely. And almost an amazing catch. He went with the one hand here. And in the Detroit and Baltimore game, it looks like that Baltimore defense already causing some issues to that Detroit offensive line, that they forced a fumble on Jared Goff. They were able to get it back, but it'll now be punting away. But the pressure has been there, play in and play out, from everything that we've seen here in studio. So that's something to watch, and I think could be a difference here. That we kind of talked about both these teams. The Detroit defense, as great as it's been, I don't know if that's something I'm buying into in the long run. The Baltimore defense, I absolutely am. That I think this is one that means business, and I think that could be the difference in this matchup.
So the other games, Bears, Raiders, 0-0. Raiders missed a 41-yard field goal.
Another missed field goal by the Giants here. The
a missed field goal from the Giants, and
today.
we're about to go Atlanta in the red zone. And here we go here in NFL red zone, going to it. Jonnu Smith, 18-yard completion. Now Atlanta has a chance here to score on the Tampa Bay 4, 2nd and goal. So we'll see if Atlanta can get some points on the board early. But any early observations for you, Sean Barnard? For me, it's definitely, look, that Colts-Browns game, there's some offense there, and very surprised at least how the Browns have already given up one of those big plays, which they have been able to avoid almost all season so far.
Yeah, I think that Browns takeaway is notable. I'm also going to pour one out for kickers right now because start to this 1 o'clock slate, kickers are 1 for 5 on field goal attempts. Patriots the only one connecting on that with a pretty basic one there. They hit I believe it was a 30-something yarder by Chad Ryland there, 30 exactly. So there, but 0 for 4 across the board the rest of that. So kickers got to step up and pave the way. I feel like we've seen a little kicking regression overall this year, that there has not been that much consistency. So not that comes into play in the long run, but a little surprise. You never want to see 1 for 5, especially when guys are missing within 40 yards.
All right, you're tuned in to Countdown to Payout, presented by Mall Chevrolet. Check us out at Fox PHL Gambler. You can also stream us on our YouTube channel, Fox Sports The Gambler on YouTube. Sean Barnard's doing an excellent job there. Also, follow us, Fox Sports The Gambler, on Instagram. Our Instagram has been doing phenomenal. We have a bunch of Phillies content over there.
Oh, yeah.
Big win last night for the Phillies, and vibes are pretty high for the Phillies, Bernard.
Oh, yeah, they're back now. We one more in Citizens Bank Park, a little bit of a rocky start in Arizona, but I am optimistic again. They needed that win last night, and they got it. 5 more wins.
5 more wins for the Phillies, 1 more to get back to the World Series. One more score before we do go, and we'll go over the 4 o'clock games coming up next. But Desmond Ridder finds the end zone. He is the first scorer in that game. Desmond Ridder, 22-1. First score in that one. Also, anytime touchdown at 6-1. We know Ridder can run a bit, and he was able to, in the goal line, able to get them into the end zone. So looks like Atlanta offense definitely moving a little bit. We knew Tampa Bay, they do give up some yards, but not just yards. They now give up the score. So Atlanta up 7-0 early on the road against Tampa Bay. All right, coming up next, there are some good 4 o'clock games. Rams, Steelers, Seahawks, Cardinals, Broncos, Packers, Chiefs, Chargers. Chargers are desperate for a win. Do you trust them to maybe not win, but to cover? We'll go over that. Coming up next here, 4 o'clock games, previewing those next year on Countdown to Payout, presented by Mall Chevrolet.
Now you can relive the greatest moments from our 2023 iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Streaming only on Hulu.
Lenny Kravitz kicks things off with his biggest hits.
Foo Fighters get the whole crowd singing along.
Tim McGraw debuts his new song live.
Public Enemy brings the 90s hip-hop energy.
Fall Out Boy covers a classic while literally on fire. And so much more.
Relive the greatest moments from our iHeartRadio Music Festival.
Streaming now only on Hulu for a limited time.
Fox Sports Radio, The Gambler. Now, total traffic for Philadelphia.
Well, for starters, looks like we have plenty of volume in both directions cross town on the Vine Street Expressway, especially between the Schuylkill and Broad. Eastbound Schuylkill slows the curve through Belmont and again Montgomery through the Vine Street Expressway. Westbound extra stacked up City Avenue through Belmont with continuing delays after that. Gladwin through the Conshohocken curve. Eric Herr, Total Traffic.
This report is sponsored by Pfizer. Seems like COVID's everywhere again, but there's good news from Pfizer. This season's updated COVID-19 shots are now available for ages 6 months and up, and they're designed to better protect against recent variants. Ask your pharmacist or doctor and schedule at vaccines.gov. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Jim Gaffigan here with some more Straight Talk. Now you can get a Walmart Plus membership, plus not pay for it, because it's included with Straight Talk wireless plans. You get free delivery with Walmart Plus a Paramount Plus subscription included. Plus, you pay less for gas. That's a lot of pluses.
Only Straight Talk gives you unlimited 5G data and Walmart Plus included on select plans for free.
Straight Talk wireless, available at Walmart.
Requires service on Gold or Platinum Unlimited. One offer per eligible account. Paramount Plus Essential Plan only. Separate registration required. Additional terms apply.
Hey, man, you all right? Need me to call 911? No, call Top Dog Law. Get top dollar for your accident at topdoglaw.com. Once again, that's topdoglaw.com.
iHeartRadio brings you New to View, Streaming Edition.
Looking for something to watch? Listen up. Next week on Netflix, Monday, we have the Season 2 premiere of the kids show Princess Power. Next Tuesday on Netflix, the debut of the docuseries Get Gotti, as well as the new stand-up
have the ball. And the Ravens continuing to drive again. They are a couple yards away from the red zone. They're facing a 3rd and short, 3rd and 2 to be specific. So we'll see if the Ravens can continue that drive and put up more points on the board and extend their early lead against Detroit. Let's get into the 4 o'clock games. Again, Countdown to Payout presented by Mall Chevrolet. Sean Barnard with myself, John Jansen. Rams and Steelers were started out with, and I said I like this game. I like a side. And that side is the Los Angeles Rams laying the 3.5. But I'll let you take this one. Anything you like for Rams and Steelers?
Yeah, I lean the Rams here. I think the 3.5. I pretty much declared the Rams dead coming into this year, and I'm willing to say I was wrong on that.
I think a lot of people did. You're definitely not the only one.
Yeah, Matt Stafford has more in the tank than I expected him to, and this is still a pretty complete football team. This is the same team that won a Super Bowl 2 years ago, and for the most part, they're still there. So there is a little bit of life in there. I'm not a huge believer in the Steelers team. I don't think Kenny Pickett's that good, and I think this team has some roster problems as a whole. So I do lean the Rams in that one at -3.5. Not a play that I have taken, but I do lean that way. I also like the Packers over the Broncos. It's another kicking them while they're down. I have like little to zero belief in this Broncos team whatsoever. And I kind of do in Jordan Love.
That's fair enough.
Yeah,
I would say.
I think the Packers have shown me a little bit of something this year. Jordan Love hasn't been flawless by any means, but there's something there. There's something that I can believe in there. So I lean those two, and we've had our conversations about the Chargers. That is a team that I will be completely staying away from as well.
Got to stay away from the Chargers. Don't like that. Well, I will say I do like the Rams and Steelers game. I'm going to take the 3.5. The thing that's different with Pittsburgh here is their defense is not good.
Yeah.
We talked about this when that game happened between Baltimore and Pittsburgh. Brace and I were talking, and I was saying, the Pittsburgh defense is going to show up. They're going to play well. I think they'll do a good job against the Ravens. And, Brace did rightfully push back. Like, they haven't been playing well. Like, that's different. That's division game to me. That is teams you're familiar with. And look, it happened where I think the Ravens were on the road, tough game, ended up missing some plays, dropped passes, and it lost them the game. This is a little bit different to me. This is a good passing Rams offense. Steelers have to go all the way to the West Coast. This game is probably going to be a little bit more high scoring. It's weird to see a Steelers game that did have one of the higher totals on the board, especially when you consider the 1 o'clock games,
right,
all almost below 40. This one's at 44. The Rams passing offense is legit.
Yeah.
And they have 2 great wide receivers now with Puka Nacua and Cooper Kupp. I agree with Roy Burton. I think Puka Nacua is one to target, especially for some passing props and also DFS. But they're averaging 279.5 passing yards per game, while the Steelers are giving up 265.4 passing yards per game. It's a defense that's giving up 409 yards of total defense. It's bad.
Yeah.
It's bad what the Steelers defense has done. And I think good passing offenses can expose that. And I think we're going to see that here with the Rams. So I like this game. I don't think Kenny Pickett can keep up. Yes, the Rams defense isn't great, but it's more Kenny Pickett, his own problems, his own shortcomings that I think end up coming up short for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Next one, Seahawks laying a big number against the Cardinals, 9.5. Now the Cardinals and Josh Dobbs, look, they were competitive in games. They were good at a point. They come up with a big upset against Dallas. Since then, though, things have just started to really go downhill. Now, 3 tough teams, San Francisco, Cincinnati, and the Rams, all on the road. But still, this is another road game, another division game, and another tough offense. I don't have a play in this one, but 9.5, actually, that looks like a correct number to me.
Yeah, I like the number as well. It's another one that I'm staying away with. I hate to say it, but I like Josh Dobbs, man. I like the way that he competes. I like the decisions that he makes. He's coming off 3 straight games. Like, you can't blame him for not winning against the Bengals, the 49ers, and Rams. Those are 3 tough teams, as you said.
They are.
The Rams probably the one that they probably should have been more competitive in. That ended a 26-9 victory for Los Angeles there. But for the most part, he has stayed competitive this year. If you want to look at against the Giants, 31-28, that being the Giants' lone victory. The Commanders, 20-16. The Vikings, 18-17. Or that was back in preseason. The Cardinals over the Cowboys. They have some decent results, and Josh Dobbs is not a guy who's going to cough games away. So I think this one could stay competitive. I'm not as in on the Seahawks as I think a lot of people are. I do think we're seeing a little bit of Geno Smith regression this year. This is one I'm staying away with. I do think the Seahawks are more likely to take care of business. If I had to play a lean, I would go towards that Seahawks 9.5. But I think as a whole that this Cardinals team is not a bottom of the barrel team in the way that I kind of expected them to be. They're going to compete week in and week out. The defense has had some ups and downs as well. To me, I'm staying away, but if it had to be a play, it would be that -9.5.
Yeah, I just don't trust the Seahawks at times in this game. Their offense is good. They get points. They drive down the field. Really good balanced team too, but they just have a lot of red zone problems. They don't have a really good red zone target. You would think DK Metcalf, but he's not a jump ball guy.
There's your Mike Evans.
There
anytime.
it is. Mike Evans, anytime touchdown.
Yes, sir.
Baker Mayfield
Hot
and the
start.
offense respond. This game is going to be tied 7-7. And how about Baltimore, by the way? Up 14-0 against Detroit. We knew this would be a test for Detroit. And Barnard, you pointed it out when you talked about this game, more of a test for their defense. Was their defense going to be legit? They've put up better numbers than last year. They looked better than they have at any point last year. But right now, looks like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens have the upper hand, up 14-0, catching the touchdown pass, number 2 for Lamar. You know who it is?
Who's that?
Nelson Aguilar.
Look at that.
Who has ended up, I'll give him some credit, he's not been that bad.
He is putting it together. I think that was a situation. It was very clear. He just needed change of scenery. He needed to get somewhere else. He was in his head in Philadelphia. He was not good with the Eagles, but he is turning things down a little bit, and he does fit what they are trying to do in Baltimore for sure.
Definitely does. Nelson Aguilar, 6-1 for an anytime touchdown. Mike Evans, plus 155 for the anytime touchdown. So cash the Mike Evans. Cash the Zay Flowers over 20.5 longest reception. We're off to a good start here in Countdown to Payout. Let's continue, though, with the 4 o'clock games as we're continuing to get scores coming in from the 1 o'clocks. Seahawks Cardinals, again, I got nothing for that one. I just don't trust the Seahawks offense to cover that number. They don't really have any good red zone targets, and that's an issue for them sometimes, but they can hit some big plays. I think they win. I just don't like the 9.5. If you want to bet anything, look at some of those passing yards. DK Metcalf, especially. The Cardinals obviously can give up some big passing plays, and I think they will. They give up 266 yards passing per game, and obviously Seattle's passing offense, good. So I do like them to perform well against Arizona. Let's go to the next game here for the 4 o'clocks. I don't know if you have a play. You said you did, so I'll let you explain more. Do you like the Packers over the Broncos?
I do. I like the Packers over the Broncos.
Why do you like the Packers?
The Broncos, man. I don't even know where to start.
I knew it wasn't going to be anything about Green Bay, and it was going to be everything about Denver.
I'll start with Jordan Love has been okay. I've been satisfied with what I've seen from Jordan Love. He hasn't been flawless, but there are flashes where I can see it. So I do think that there are signs of progress there. I just have nothing to believe in for this Broncos team. It's on both sides of the ball that they're bad. Russell Wilson still looks bad. Sean Payton has not been able to change things in the way that he was promised, and especially for a guy that came into the season basically taking shots at Nathaniel Hackett for his performance last year. To be off to a 1-5 start is brutal. And defensively, I just don't see, like, if we're looking for a good spot for Jordan Love, this is the worst defensive team in the league. That they're allowing 33.3 points per game. That's dead last in the NFL, the Broncos this year. That's a perfect spot for Jordan Love to get something going. I just don't see anything with Denver. I think that the Packers are still playing good football. They're hungry, and I think they get it done here.
I think they do as well. It's not a game I want to bet on because the Packers have not similar issues, but they have plenty of issues to go along with what Denver does. It's a team that just doesn't move the ball well. It's a bad offense at this point. I don't know what to make of Jordan Love. They're also injured a lot. There's just a lot going on with Green Bay that I haven't liked. And maybe we're starting to see too, is Matt LaFleur a good coach? I don't know if that's the case. Again, injuries play a part in this. They've had injuries with wide receivers, running back, but still the offense has not been good. Under 300 yards per game in the last 2, Detroit and Vegas. 13 points against Vegas, 20 points against Detroit, and even in their win against New Orleans, only 18 points. This is an offense that only one game against Chicago. We know how bad Chicago's defense is. Only one game that they've played well. This offense isn't good at the moment, and they're not scoring, not moving the ball. It is a disaster. Jordan Love's throwing picks as well. It's just not a team I want to back. I don't want to back Denver, though. If this is the game to do it, or if there is a time to back Denver, I think this is the game to do it.
I just don't think there's a time to.
There might not ever be, and it's going to get worse before it gets better in Denver. So I'm staying away from that game. I don't like anything. I don't even like any touchdown. I think it's going to be low scoring, sloppy. So I don't want anything to do with prop bets in that one either. So that is a big, big, fat no for me. Next game, though, probably biggest game in the 4 o'clock slate, Chiefs and Chargers. I actually do like a side in this game. I think it's going to be opposite of what you like, though.
Yeah, give me Chiefs minus 5.5. That my general rule of thumb is bet against Justin Herbert, and it's been going pretty well for me. That I know we're going to rip off the Band-Aid here a little bit, but I just have never seen a guy who knows how to lose a football game the way Justin Herbert does, and that's kind of where I'm coming from here. the Chiefs have yet to have that like killer instinct that I kind of expect from this season, but they're still playing good football. They're still winning games and they're still just doing their thing. I think they're going to be a team that continues to get better throughout the course of the season. I think today's going to be another stride forward with that. And while we're saying all this, that this is the team that are going to be a perennial Super Bowl contender. They're still 5-1, even without playing their best football. And their defense has quietly been very good this year, allowing the second fewest points per game at 14.7. It doesn't feel like they're winning games in the Kansas City Chiefs way. It almost feels like the Dolphins have kind of taken over this offensive superpower, and the Chiefs are just being this solid, just get the job done. But I think that changes. I think this is obviously a divisional matchup, one that means something here, and I think they find a way to get it done against Justin Herbert and a Chargers team that just has more holes.
How about a little swagger from Gardner Minshew as he runs into the end zone from about 20 yards out, about 16, 17, it looks like.
One thing he does not
He
does not lack is swagger.
Look at that. Look at a little shoulder shimmy as he gets into the end zone. Little Steph Curry looking there, wasn't it? Yeah, for the basketball guy Barnard here. Little Steph Curry action for Gardner Minshew. But yes, Minshew ends up scoring. We got some points on the board early.
Way more.
We were told this is going to be a low-scoring slate. The total started to go down, and now we're seeing overs potentially in play. We'll start off with, again, Bucks Falcons tied at 7, so 14 points in that game. Ravens up 14-0 over the Lions. The Bills ended up scoring. They're up 10-7 against the New England Patriots, or they're down 10-7 against the New England Patriots, so 17 points in that game. Obviously, again, with the Colts and Browns, that was a total of 39, 29 points already. It's the first quarter. Gardner Minshew playing very well against a Browns defense that was playing the best in football for 6 weeks. They're not looking so hot, though, against the Colts, and backup quarterback now starting for the rest of the year, Gardner Minshew. Chicago Bears up 7-0 over the Raiders. We didn't expect nothing out of that game, so at least I'm happy there are some points on the board for them. So, yeah, a lot of scoring so far. Maybe that'll be taken into the 4 o'clock slate. Who knows? But I do think we're going to see some points out of the Chargers-Chiefs game. Look, Chiefs defense is good.
Mm-hmm.
That's certainly something to take into account here. This isn't the usual Chiefs team that you expect. Mahomes throwing a little bit more interceptions. Now, a lot of those did come against the Jets, so it's not like he's doing it every game, but he is prone to it. The problem for the Chargers is their secondary is beat up and their secondary is bad. They're giving up over 300 yards passing per game. That's not going to cut it, and that's certainly been a problem for them. I think, though, Justin Herbert has had success against the Chiefs before. They've been able to beat the Chiefs. I do think because there is a familiar kind of ground between these two, they've played each other a lot, obviously, in this, and we know Herbert and Mahomes, they have battled, and Herbert has won these games. He's been able to beat the Chiefs at times. I think this is one they at least keep it close. They are desperate.
They are.
I mean, desperate for a win. They cannot go down 2-4, which they can. They can go to 2-4. They can lose this game. I just think the 5.5, 6 is a very big number. It's 5.5 right now on DraftKings. In some places it could go up to 6. A 5.5, I'm going to take it. I think that's too many points. It's a desperate Chargers team. I think Justin Herbert certainly did not have his best game last week. I thought it was an awful game he played. One of the worst I've seen from him so far this year. But then we've also seen great games, like 40 of 47 against Minnesota, and some really good games put together by Justin Herbert. So I still think he's playing well this season. I think he'll play well in this game in a desperate situation. They keep it close. I'm not going money line. I'm not going win. I think they potentially could win, but the Chiefs are keeping games close. This isn't a team that's going to blow you out anymore. This isn't a team that's running away from teams now because their offense is so good. This is a team that manufactures a few drives here and there because they don't have much talent offensively now, and their defense is really their strength. So I think this is low scoring. Or at least low scoring enough. I think the Chargers can stay in this, and I do think they cover the 5.5.
And just to point out, in his career, Justin Herbert, 2-4 versus the Chiefs. He is 27-27 all-time record, and he's also thrown 13 interceptions in the fourth quarter of one-score games since 2020, more than any quarterback during that stretch. So I don't know.
He's also been in the fourth quarter in one-score games more than any other quarterback as well. He's in those situations a lot.
13 fourth quarter interceptions in one-score games is a lot in 3 years, regardless of how you slice it. I don't know if keeping it close is the recipe for the Chargers.
Hey.
Here. I unfortunately feel like they kind of have to blow teams out or they lose games. That's kind of how this has been the blueprint for them. So I don't think they're going to be capable of that against the Chiefs. I'm just not a Justin Herbert guy. I just don't see it in the way that he's it's interesting. He's obviously supremely talented, that you can see the eye-popping stats, the plays that he makes, some of the throws that he's capable of. But when it comes to that big moment, there's very few quarterbacks that I have less faith in than Justin Herbert. This is one that I'm just purely staying away from his end.
Jeez. The Justin Herbert hate is real with you. I think they can keep it close. 5.5 is a lot of points. Division game. This should probably be a 3.5, 4-point spread. It's just too much for me. So I'm going with the Chargers here plus the 5.5. So that's all the 4 o'clock games. Again, let's get you updated on all the scores right now. It's Countdown to Payout presented by Mall Chevrolet. Now, the Bills didn't end up scoring, so it looks like there was a penalty. So that's instead a 10-3 ball game. Patriots leading Buffalo 10-3, although Buffalo does have the ball back. So we'll see or if they're going to be kicking off here. But still, that's a 10-3 game. Giants, they're starting to drive. They're at the Washington 12, 2nd and goal. Giants, Commanders, no score yet. End of the first quarter, but again, Giants about the drive. They've been the better team so far. They've put themselves in scoring chances, missed a field goal. Now they have a chance to put more points on the board here. No empty possessions, hopefully, for the Giants, as I am on the New York Giants, plus the 3.5. Buccaneers and Falcons, they are tied. Buccaneers do have the ball, but they're facing a long 3rd and 19 after a false start. So that game all tied at 7. NFC South sort of up for grabs here, and this will certainly decide the NFC South a little bit, or at least give us some direction of the NFC South, but that's all tied. But how about this? Baltimore up 14-0 over Detroit. Detroit's offense is not getting anything going, and their defense is getting shredded, and Lamar Jackson just completed another deep ball. By the way, 22-yard pass. That thing cashes. That thing is going over. You can't double it. I wish you could double it. I should have doubled it, but still over 20.5 for Zay Flowers earlier with a 46-yard catch. He just had another one, 22 yards. So Baltimore now, they're close to passing midfield. They're close. They're a yard away. They're at their own 49. They're going to be close to passing midfield as the first quarter gets started, but they're up 14-0. This could be early in the second quarter, a 21-0 game for Detroit. That one's getting out of hand very, very, very quickly.
And Lamar already cruising pretty close to that over on the passing and rushing yards, which we talked about. He's at about 170 on the day. That number is at 271.5. So almost there, still chugging along. He's on pace for that. Looking good there as well.
By the way, more bad news for Cleveland. It's just getting worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. Deshaun Watson picked off again. And during the play in which he got picked off again, which it looks like a drop, actually. So should have been a pick, should have been number 2 for Deshaun Watson. But on that play, though, Deshaun Watson goes down. He's hurt. So we'll see if he's definitely probably going to have to go to the sideline and sit out for at least a play. Is it going to be more than that? Certainly looks like he's hurting on the right side, favoring. I don't know if that is a hand, arm, shoulder, whatever the case may be, but certainly not good for the Cleveland Browns. They got one big play out of the running game by Jerome Ford. Other than that, it's been a fat goose egg for that Cleveland Browns offense. And Deshaun Watson, he looks awful coming back from injury and again, hurt again. But Colts up 14-7 there. Bears up 7-0 at the moment as well over the Raiders. All right, countdown to payouts presented by Mall Chevrolet for over 8 years in a row now. Mall Chevrolet has been South Jersey's #1 Chevy dealer. It could be because they treat their customers right. And that's why Mall Chevy was voted a top 100 dealer in the country for customer satisfaction. Simply, their motto is they sell Chevys for less. Come see for yourself. Visit Mall Chevrolet on Haddonfield Road in Cherry Hill, across from the Cherry Hill Mall, or online at mallchevy.com. Find new roads at Mall Chevrolet, mallchevy.com. Coming up next, we'll go over the night game. Sunday night, Birds, Dolphins, 2 of the NFL's best so far this season. Which one comes out on top? Which way are we betting this game? All that coming up next here on Countdown to Payout. Well, Sean Barnard, I don't know if you are a praying man, but if you are, prayers for the Detroit Lions backers.
Yeah, not a good start for them.
Goodness.
Lamar,
they're down 21-0.
Lamar is on one.
The second quarter just started. And Baltimore is putting on a heck of a show. Lions look to be contenders. I don't know what people meant by contenders. I guess in the NFC, maybe. Look, I don't want to put down Detroit. Obviously, it's a quarter and a half, and you don't want to run victory laps on a quarter and a half of play in any game. But this was the concern, was defense. Defense wasn't going to stop good offenses. I'm glad they can stop Tampa Bay. I'm glad they can stop Carolina. I'm glad they can stop the Falcons, and I even think Green Bay was in there too. I'm glad they can stop those offenses. They're now taking on a legit offense, a good quarterback, not just good, great quarterback, and Lamar Jackson already, Bernard, in 2 minutes into the second quarter, excuse me. 2 minutes into the second quarter, 207 yards, 2 touchdowns passing, add on that 18 yards rushing and a score running. He has 3 touchdowns in the first half against a team that's 5-1 this season.
Yeah. And as a proud owner of a Lamar Jackson MVP ticket, I think he's firmly in that mix. That this is a guy who is playing at an elite level right now. He's carving up this Lions defense. This has been one of the more impressive stretches of play that I've seen from him, and it's been good all season.
Well, now that the numbers are going to catch up because of a game like this, and they're finally going to start to look really good.
Yeah,
he's been the MVP this season, at least in my eyes. He's been the best quarterback to me all season. It's a lot of other things going on with Baltimore that's kind of prevented that from showing in the results and the numbers. But in terms of play, I think he's been the best. And I think he's starting to show that. And look, it was just, again, health and can you make plays? And finally, Baltimore's making those plays and Lamar's benefiting from it.
Yeah, and I think the other guy in that conversation is probably Tua, who I know we're going to get into here. I feel like Lamar is a bigger part of the Ravens. Like, no disrespect to Tua, but I think you can put more quarterbacks in that system and he executes at least a similar level. You can't pick up and put Lamar Jackson, or you can't pick up and put another quarterback in this Ravens system and do what Lamar Jackson is doing. It's very impressive to me how dynamic he is with both his legs and his arm. Much better thrower of the ball than he gets credit. He throws a really pretty deep ball that we spoke about it with the Zay Flowers, talk about that.
He has a great deep ball.
Yeah, when he slings it, that's a good looking throw. So I love that about Lamar, and I'm happy to see him balling out.
Yeah, happy as well. So Ravens up early, 21-0. Giants did score. Good pass by Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's bold, how bold it is. I mean, Daniel Jones is the one getting over $40 million, so I guess it is in terms of pay grade. But I think Tyrod's better. I think he's played better. Now, I will give Daniel Jones the benefit of the doubt here because he didn't have Barkley. You know what I mean? Like that changed the offense immediately when Barkley came back in. So Tyrod Taylor is certainly benefiting from that and benefiting from the offense being 100%, but still, it shouldn't look this close to what your offense was and even slightly better just because of one player being back like Barkley. I know he's impactful. He's amazing. But the quarterback play itself just looks better. It looks smoother.
It does.
It looks like he's playing within the system. He's making good throws. He's not overthrowing everyone. He looks good. So, look, the Giants are going to make that decision. When Daniel Jones is ready to play, he will be back under center. But, man, I don't know if he's the best quarterback on that roster.
I love Tyrod too. This is a guy that really has never gotten his chance to be a starter. That he's had this string of bad luck. Remember the lung
all the
injury
injuries
or whatever with that. But he is a guy who's incredibly professional, shows up, takes care of business, is a leader. I even remember with the Chargers situation when they first drafted Herbert that he was there as supposed to be kind of the bridge guy, and then it didn't work out with the injuries and everything that happened there. He is a guy that I feel like kind of got looked over in the string of things, that I think he is good enough to be a fringe NFL starter. It's cool to see him shining in this role. And I agree with you. It'd probably be the right decision to leave him in. I also think there's zero chance the Giants do it because of that contract.
Zero chance they do it. But that contract was a mistake. We knew it was a mistake. Also, you paid the wrong player, Saquon Barkley. Yeah. But you can tell. I mean, don't look at just the results and that he's not getting 200 yards rushing per game or total offense, whatever you're expecting from a running back being paid. I think the expectations are always so high. It's just that he impacts the game more than any other player on that Giants team.
Absolutely.
He's by far their best player.
His presence changes the game. Him being there changes the entire look of a defense, how they line up, everything that goes along with it. So while he has not had these eye-popping numbers or impact in the statistical category, Saquon Barkley is the biggest reason that this team is
100%
any sort of hope. So, yeah, I totally agree with you there, and I do think they messed things up throughout the whole contract situation.
All right, let's close things out. Talk a little bit of birds. Eagles trying to bounce back from their first loss of the season. They are 3-point favorites at home. Kelly Green Day. It's here.
Yeah,
I'm so glad. I can't wait. I'm going to be down there, Xfinity Live. Green Legion Radio going to be live at 4 o'clock. So make sure you have your clock set 4 o'clock. Green Legion Radio live from Xfinity 1100 Social. I will be there. I'll be helping out with the broadcast. I'm staying at 1100 Social and watching the game there. So very excited. I imagine a lot of Kelly Green, but I'm also thinking Eagles win. That was one last week. As soon as that game ended for the Jets, I talked with good friend of the program, Jeff Parles, and immediately we texted each other the same thing on the same wavelength. The Eagles are going to be one of the better bets on the board for Sunday night, and I think they are.
Yeah,
I'm laying the 3. I think the offense does well here. Jalen Hurts is going to clean up the turnovers. It's a bad secondary, banged up secondary for Miami. A.J. Brown will do well. Devontae Smith will do well. I think Jalen Hurts is going to bounce back and have a great game. He doesn't have many bad games, and I don't even think he played that bad, barring a fourth quarter that was horrible.
Right.
And I admit that. Horrible fourth quarter. The other 3 were very good. If the Eagles can clean up the turnovers, plays are there to be made. I don't think Brian Johnson's play calling is that big of a problem. I think it's actually been pretty good. There are plays to be made. Make them. Catch the passes. Don't put the ball on the ground. Don't get intercepted. And I think the Eagles will be fine. I like their defense also returning Jalen Carter. One thing that you can do with speed, match it with physicality. Buffalo did that when they beat Miami. And I think this is a similar game where the Eagles are physical enough. And look, juices will be flowing. Kelly Greens are back. Crowd's going to be hyped. Sunday Night Football. I think it's going to be a great environment for physicality to end up winning in this one.
Yeah, there is going to be that power versus speed kind of matchup here. And
it does feel like that.
What gives me a little optimism, and I flip-flopped on this game all week, that I started out thinking, for number one, we have not seen this Eagles team play to its potential all season. We've yet to see them play up to the level that is expected, that Super Bowl caliber bar that we are holding them to. I hope tonight is that night. But there's also a part of me that thinks this Dolphins team may not be this Super Bowl caliber team they're being projected as either. That what really has been their string of games, that they have not been challenged outside of the Bills, who they suffered a loss at the hands of, and a pretty convincing loss in the direction of the Bills there. These guys are putting up like Pac-12 level offensive numbers. Like, it's absurd, some of these things that are coming off the screen. I don't know if that's here to stay, and I don't see how the Eagles stop it. As I mentioned, I love just about all the props in this game. I think points is the way this Dolphins and Eagles game is going to go. When you look at all the props, the A.J. Brown 82.5, DeAndre Swift over 22.5 receiving yards, I like a lot. Dallas Goedert over 40.5 receiving yards. Tyreek Hill over 98.5. I just feel like the ball is going to be everywhere tonight. I like the player props. I think that's the way to go. I still lean Eagles. I've kind of talked myself into it, that this will be a statement game, a response game for it, but they absolutely have to prove it on the biggest stage, and you're totally right that the energy is going to be off the charts.
It definitely will be. I'm very excited. Are you going down there, Bernard? You don't seem like a crowd guy. Are you?
I wouldn't say I'm not a crowd guy, but I won't be down there tonight.
Oh, that's a shame. I'll be down there. Enjoy the game. That is it for Countdown to Payoff, again presented by Mall Chevrolet. For 8 years in a row now, Mall Chevrolet has been South Jersey's #1 Chevy dealer. It could be because they treat their customers right. And that's why Mall Chevy was voted a top 100 dealer in the country for customer satisfaction. Simply, their motto is, they sell Chevys for less. Come see for yourself. Visit Mall Chevrolet on Haddonfield Road in Cherry Hill, across from the Cherry Hill Mall, or online at mallchevy.com. Find new roads at Mall Chevrolet, mallchevy.com. Sean Bernard, thank you for joining me, filling in for Sean Brace, who is out on dad duty today, so you had to fill in. Thank you so much. They can follow you at Sean_Bernard1. I'm sure we'll be talking some Phillies and things tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Right here on The Gambler. But 4 o'clock, live from Xfinity Live at 1100 Social, at 4 o'clock, if I could spit that out, Green Legion Radio, getting you ready for Philadelphia Eagles football. Until then, we're going to hand it off to Fox Sports Radio. That is it for Countdown to Payout. We'll be back next Sunday for Countdown to Payout, 12 to 2, right here on The Gambler.